What's up, y'all? Today I'm going to be showing you how you can make some better sounding Serum 2 granular and spectral pad presets, specifically on focusing how to get nice macros out of them and to get textures that aren't just like seventh minor or seventh, 11th, whatever it's called, a minor seventh or a minor ninth or a minor 11th chord where you have to play 5 notes to get kind of a decent big pad sound. We're going to be making textural or interesting granular pads. So I'll start by kind of demoing this one, showing how I did some of the macros from it, showing how to kind of build it, but not from scratch. And then for the rest of the maybe 30 or 40 minutes or so, I will show how to make granular pad presets from scratch using the method that I use to make all of the presets that I have in these Serum 2 granular pad preset pack, I guess. I don't know the name of it. We're gonna name it at some point when I finish making it, but this will be promo for that, and it might be out now or it might be coming out soon. So go buy it if it is out, and if it's not out, go buy it when it comes out, or just make the presets off of what I've shown here. You can do these yourself. It's gonna be cheap though. Go buy it. It's probably $8, something like that. All right, so with that, let me kind of demo this one for a couple seconds so you can see what I mean by like interesting granular textural shit. So these are going to be 1-note pads, which means if you just play a single note here, just kind of have it loop for about 16 bars. You just have to play 1 note. You don't have to know music theory. If you play a D, there will be a melodic texture in the key of D. So here's what that's going to sound like. Okay, so I don't want to get stuck doing that for too long because I will just mess with the knobs forever. The point being that like macros, if you don't do them in the like cookie, and I'm not, no disrespect to anybody else making presets, I don't like, if I am using a preset, I don't like to twist a knob and be like, that's exactly what I expected to happen, right? There needs to be a mixture of familiarity where it's like, hey, if there's a chorus knob, it needs to adjust a chorus or do something with a chorus. But if it's just a low pass filter knob, I would rather you have a knob that's a low pass filter called energy, to where it's like, oh, this adds energy because it's adding high end, than a knob that just says low pass filter, because I can always, as somebody who knows sound design, just add a low pass filter, right? I can do that post, or I can do it like in the synth in Serum 2 in a lot of cases with the endlessness of this. So I want there to mostly be macros that are, when you adjust them, a major change to the sound, a tonal shift to the sound, or like something fun that happens to the sound, right? So we're going to be going over how to get some of that stuff, but we're going to start first with the thing that I have had the most struggles with explaining to people, and that is when you're building these, I'm going to set this to direct out. When you are building a single note pad or texture generator, you are often, or I almost always, if not always, am using a sample, right? I'm using a sample that I made, that way I can sell it, but like I am using a sample, right? So if that sample is not in the key of C, and I press, right, if I'm using a synthesizer and I press C, a C plays. If I press D, a D plays. If I press G sharp, a G sharp plays. But if I'm using a sample in the key of G sharp, when I press a C, and here's what a G sharp sounds like. That's a G sharp. What should happen when I press C? Should it A, play G sharp, which means this sound? Or should it play the same thing transposed down to a C, right? So this changed into a C. I would argue that when I play a C in the piano roll or a D in the piano roll, when I'm using a synth, I want it to play D major, D minor, or something related to D. I don't want to have to go through every synth that I've designed and be like, okay, well, this one, when I press C, it actually plays a G sharp. So if you guess that, yes, this, when I press C, will play that sound, you're correct, right? It's because I haven't changed the tuning of it, with the only exception being if you use the tune mapping in anything where you can like set the tuning of a sample. I'm not going to do that in this tutorial, but you can do that. And I actually do that to all my samples so that I never have to adjust this stuff, and it does it automatically. And Serum will actually do it automatically in the granular, the sample, and the spectral oscillators. Other than that, you're going to need to go in and adjust it. So that means if your sample is in G sharp, like this one is, you can either go 1, 2, 3, 4 semitones up to get to that higher C, right? So that when I play this, now when I'm playing the lower G sharp, that's the correct G sharp. That's up, you know, to the higher C, and this would be a lower C, right? Does that make sense? Or I can go down 8 semitones, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to play the lower C. And, you know, it's just whichever, I usually just go whichever direction's closer. Right? So hopefully that makes sense. When I've explained that in a lot of tutorials that I've done, I get some pretty nasty comments that are like, this tutorial, not always. It's a confusing thing. And when I explain it, I never spend more than 5, literally 5 is a maximum amount of seconds I spend on it, because most of my tutorials are not for beginners, but they get seen by beginners because the majority of producers are beginners. No, that's not an attack or trying to gas myself up. It's just the way that hobbies work. But the majority of golfers are beginners. If you're out there golfing, I hate to break it to you, you're a beginner. Except for like 1 or 2 people. There might be a couple of scratch golfers out there. You know, I've golfed like 3 times. I'm a beginner. I don't even know why I'm talking about golfing. Golfing's the lamest hobby. It's actually, it's the second lamest hobby. The first lamest hobby is making electronic music. So let's get that out in the clear real quick. Anyways, I'm sorry for yapping, but if hopefully that made sense, and just to test if that made sense, what would you do with this C sharp sample? If you want to, when you press C sharp for it to play a C sharp, that's right, you would pitch it down 1 semitone. And if you're like, why? I hate to break it to you, but you failed. You failed. You should quit music. Not really. I don't want to make anybody feel bad, but like, if I can't explain it any better than that. I don't know what else to say, what words to use. C sharp, 1 note higher, pitch down 1 semitone. If D, pitch 2. If D sharp, pitch 3. 1, 2, 3. Does that make sense? Follow it all the way up. That's how it works. All right, I'm not going to talk about this anymore. So starting point, we've loaded 2 melodic samples into here. And I'm just going to kind of go through and turn off all of my, well, actually, no. I'm just going to talk about how these effects work. So I will have to start by turning off a couple of them. And we'll kind of go through and turn them on one at a time. So what we have here, whoops, turn all these off. We've loaded a melodic sample that's in C sharp, so we've pitched it down 1 semitone so that when we play a C plays, and when we play a C sharp plays. I said I wasn't going to talk about it anymore, but I cannot stop. So then, first thing I like to do is turn the offset up. Let's say that we have a higher density. Density controls the amount of little grains that play. And if we turn that density nice and high, we have a lot of grains. It turns into like a pad-like, you know, wavery texture. I'm going to turn this off and kind of reset these. I don't want that on. I don't want this on. Sorry. So if we have a bunch of voices, a big density, we'll have that look like that. And then by turning the offset up, we randomize the start point of the majority of those voices, right? So if we turn the grain density down, we are just kind of doing a random voice every time a new grain plays. Now, if we have a really low, or we have a lot of silence between our grains, the first thing we might do is, first of all, I went in here and changed this to none so that this oscillator is only playing into the first bus. So I turned that up, set this to none. Now it's going into the first bus, so we can process each of our different oscillators with different effects. So the first thing that I have on this is a delay. So just making a nice repeating grain thing. Next, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to turn on a multiband compressor and a mid-side compression thing that just makes this nice and loud. And I've kind of went in and set these to this particular preset. I'm not going to show that, but you'll see it when I do a couple of them live because I like a nice loud texture. Who doesn't? So then next we're going to add a flanger and a little distortion. Not important, but the important thing will be interesting textures. I like to have them where they have a rhythm that links them to typically to the to the rhythm of the track. Basically gives them some rhythm to fit with like a tempoed electronic, BPM song, right? Let me play a higher note by a little bit. And then we might, as far as macro, well, I'll get to the macros later, but basically now we have a thing where we have a nice little like modulated LFO'd plucked filtered granular oscillator thing, right? So then for oscillator B, same thing, except we've sent it into the second bus. And I'm going to turn oscillator A off for a second and just show this one. First thing for this one is a reverb with another LFO set to a bar length, so much quicker than this one, where that's turning the mix up. We have a phaser that it's going through, and then we have another low pass filter on this one again too. With the only caveat being we're modulating this one by that same LFO as the first one, so these both get LFO 1, but bus 2 has the low pass filter that's getting this slow LFO at a bar rate that goes up on the vintage reverb. It just adds an extra pop to the high end of this one. So when the reverb is happening, the most amount of the sound is getting sent through the filter. So hopefully you can... Hopefully you can hear that on that end of the bar. It's like kind of going, it's like sucking up into it. So now we'll add these two together, and that adds almost a nice little like dual rhythm thing because this one has a louder point to it. It's almost like rhythm and counter rhythm in a way. Same thing as like melody and counter melody. So just to not get stuck too far in the weeds, we're just going to move directly into the macros with this one so I have some time to make some presets from scratch. Please tell me that I'm recording the audio. Yes, I am. Excellent. So what did I do macro wise? So let's talk about the simpler macros first. First of all, we have grain density. As you can see, it just adds a lot of voices. It adds a shit ton of voices or grains to this. I prefer less grains with this. Then we have the scatter, which just turns up the randomness of the pan. So as you can see, this one changes the density. This one changes the pan randomness. Chorus is another simple one. It just adds a chorus onto the main. These are just kind of like what I would consider flavoring tools, right? So maybe I have this thing that I want to add a chorus to. One thing too that I would say is if I'm going to do the chorus, I might also do a utility right before it to where, because adding a chorus to something that's already super wide is not really productive because it's just going to mess the stereo up even more. I might do a width reduction along with the chorus to like give it almost like a lo-fi chorus sound. I don't know if that's productive or not, but I'm going to stick with it. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I do think that that's a smart idea, or maybe even chorus followed by. No, that's stupid. That's a bad idea. I would normally say that that's a good idea. Just in this case, I don't want to have to resave the preset to change that, so I'm just going to get rid of it. Might do that later. So just a chorus, just adding some chorus to a thing that's already stupid wide. It's not really making that much of a difference. So forgive me for even showing that. Let's talk about the things that do make a big difference though. First of all, we have, and there might be a case in which like the chorus does more. For example, like if the grain density is really low. I do feel like in that case, like it adds a nice warmth, but once we get more grains, it gets less pronounced. The effect becomes less pronounced, and that's the case with a lot of stuff. So moving into the important macros, as I would call them, first and foremost, we have the rhythm shuffle, which is a fun one that just changes the speed of the pluck LFO to be pretty small, or pretty slow. So it makes the slow one fast and the fast one slow. Which I think is always a fun thing to do, and I'll show you why in a second. Then we have the unpluck, which is one that I have found so useful in so many presets, which just takes the pluck. If the unpluck is totally off, that means it's fully unplucked, which means it's maximally plucked. So as you can see, as we turn the unpluck on, it unplucks it on both of these. So it just gives us almost like a mix knob for the pluck, which is really cool. Another thing too that you can do is you can go in here and change macro 5, which is the unpluck. Change the amount at which these are being adjusted. So as you can hear that, whoops, sorry, that one lets the reverb in more faster. Whereas if you have this one taller, yeah, that lets the reverb in faster. This one would bring the reverb in slower, and we could kind of have the right, we can just get different tones out of those. I am going to kind of reset the sound here because I don't want to mess it up too much. Now, as you can hear, that's probably one of the cooler ones. Going right there. That's the Penji motor. Penji motor. I don't know how you pronounce that. The Penji motor. This is what this is right here. You take a delay that's synced to tempo, add a quick little down bounce that's set to retrigger or to free, whichever you want to do. I would probably say free or retrigger for this, though envelope is maybe, who knows, envelope might work too. But then you just have to reset it. I kind of want this to go randomly. And that's adjusting the amount or the time on the delay that is synced to the BPM, right? So when this is turned on, we get those cool like bouncing pitch delays. All right, moving on to the last one. We have the bright knob and the bright function. So what does the bright knob do? Very simply, the bright knob just adjusts the octave of each oscillator. And we have one of them, I think, goes up 2 octaves. The other one goes up, looks like 3 octaves. Yeah. Now what the cool thing that I've added to this is the bright function, which is just an LFO that modulates the bright knob. So if I turn bright function on, it sets this LFO 3, which is routed to the bright knob or the bright macro to go. right? So this, and you can do that by, if you right click any modulation. So it could literally be, you know, if we wanted, let's just say we have this that we want to modulate this, and we're going to kind of turn it up. And we only want it to do that when we have this macro on. We're going to right click this auxiliary source macro, and that is macro 2, as you can see right here. So auxiliary source macro 2. So what that's doing is now I have a macro that controls an LFO on another macro that will end up sounding like this, especially with the unpluck turned off. It sounds pretty cool. So hopefully that gives you an idea of that. This will be a preset that's in that pack along with, let me see, how many do I have already made for this? Finished sounds 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I wish I had like 20 of these made. I'll do at least 20 of them in the pack, so maybe I won't put this video out this week. All right, now we're going to initialize our preset, and I'm going to make a couple of these from scratch. So first thing starting out, we will throw in a piano loop. Nice and jazzy. Change the pitch to be correct. So in F, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down should get to the correct key. For E, add a note right here. Okay, we have an E there. All right, and then I've done a bunch with the offset that randomizes it. Let's try and do one with an offset that's a little less chaotic, that kind of scans through the sample. So first we're going to change the shape. I'll kind of show that you can use a couple of these different shapes to get like different kind of shaped grains. This is just the volume of it. Right, so this one is just these little small slices. So, and if I exit, you can kind of see. Of the whole length of the grain that's like that, it's only playing that one little slice section. I've turned the scan movement down to 0 so it doesn't move, but that's with the scan turned up a little bit. Let me kind of reset that. I don't want to really explain how all the knobs work. You know, it just would bloat the tutorial too much. So we're going to use exponential decay, or actually we'll do exponential reverse. And then I just want to change the shape of this a little bit. Drag this down. And I'm going to change this to BPM sync and this to BPM sync. And then I just need to get the... Why is it not playing anything? Okay, I don't know what the hell is going on there. Yeah, I'm recording. Okay. So I'm going to turn the density up to like an 1/8 and the grain length up to, let's say, an 1/8, and it should play an 1/8 grain. So this nice like little repeating thing. And if we turn the density up, we can even get like a little repeating piece like that. And then as we scan it through, maybe we'll go backwards for this one. So directionality. Okay, so almost like a little sound palette thing. Let's go a little slower so it's not playing so many different slices. And then I'm going to change the start point. Maybe a little bit of offset randomness. I just think I don't like the reverse. Let's try a decayed. Okay, I like that a little bit better. I'm kind of just going for like ambient texture type feeling on this one. So let's call that layer 1. We're going to send it into filter 1. And then we will add, because it is based pretty heavily off of the start point, we'll add a start point macro. So piano position. So now if we start from the beginning, it starts there, move this, different start point. And I just want to, instead of doing that, I'm going to make it a really dark, like piano bottom sound. Right, so we're going to go low and 18 filter. Oh, you know what? Instead of doing that, I'm just going to actually, instead of using one of these filters, I'm going to use these filters here. So we'll do a high pass filter and a low pass filter. And what else can I do to kind of like, you know what? I think I'm just going to change this from the exponential decay. I'll try that again with a different one. But I think it definitely just sound better with, what is the Welsh one? Okay, so this one gets into like, it's like a mix of both of those in a way. That's cool. Then the Han is again like a different shape, the mix of both of those. I'm gonna go with Blackman Harris. I bet these were all mathematicians, these guys. Okay, I like that. Now we can add a couple of effects to this. So I'm going to remove this from the main. I'm going to send it to none of those, bus 1. And just give it like some space to mess with. Okay. And then maybe distort it a little bit. And I just think I need another layer because this is just pretty bland. Okay, that's cool. That's almost like a little, you know what we could do? Make it into like a tape, like a cassette tape type sound. One of the ways that you can do that is to add a all pass filter, kind of modulate the bottom of it right down here. Just way slower. Let's change this to a Lorenz. And then I'll add another filter. This is good for getting like a little distorted top crunch. There's the sample and hold. And we'll kind of link these both together and just make that like a, you know what? We'll do three different, no, just one. Just one macro so that like we can turn on and off this. Almost like a little tape knob. So I think I'm happy with that. And you know what we might even do is just change the scan rate to 0. Okay, and then we'll call this tape knob or tape emulator. Go ahead and save the sample to that. Instead of doing two different granular pianos together, let's try getting like way more digital for the second one. And we'll try Spectral with this, but I might end up having to change it. 1, 2, 3. D sharp is down 3. And by setting the scan to 0 on that, and the spectral to vocode from A. Oh. Almost get like this rotating layer that goes with it. Okay, and then I think I'm going to go in here and change this to where we have like a little more offset randomness opportunities. So we'll call this, I guess, random grain scatter. And we will also set it to the pan position. So as I'd have to, I guess, have it. So if it goes, so let me just kind of listen to what this sounds like. So at 0, it's going to be like no. It's going to be almost like rhythmic. So I just don't want it to go that far. I think I'm going to call that grain drift instead. And then the thing that I can do here is, so I want this particular macro to go up to 100%, but I don't want it to go all the way down to 0%. And I could set it, I guess, to like 80. So what I'll do is I'll set it to 60, and then have it go 20 to 100. And we'll call, what did I just say I was going to call this? Grain drift. I'll add the crunch knob because I think it sounds nice with both levels of crunch there. And then I'm not gonna have that just be like a full cab thing. Maybe how can I? Yeah, I think I'm just gonna leave that like that because I would like to have it to where I'd like to have it where it can go full guitar like that. But I don't think it's worth using a macro knob for it, to be honest. Because it just means that people are going to turn that knob and be like, doesn't do much, you know? What else can we add? So we have a spectral thing. Let's try a couple different samples. These are all in D because they're next to each other, so I can just kind of pop between them. And I think that's going to be the best one. So I'm just going to turn this down, send it into none. Oh, you know what I can do instead of doing that? I will send it into a filter. So I'll send it to filter 1. And then I can boost the drive of this so I can get more gain out of here. I could also add distortion, but I think boosting the drive works a little better. Kind of want to mix that with this, so. And we can even change the range of this. Oh, and then I think I wanted to do with the grain drift. I guess we'll turn this up too. And then so, okay, just to focus on this for a second. As I turn this to 0, it's the most centered. Crunch down a little bit. So I want it to maybe end up at the top end, like right here. So just kind of adding a little subtlety to this. And then we're going to go in here and in the matrix, that is, I think it should be the bottom one if I just did it. Yeah, the randomness pan. I'm just going to add a little macro like this to where it kind of slowly raises. So meaning if you kind of watch, well, hopefully you just understand what I mean by that. It means as I turn this, oops, randomness offset. Yeah, there we go. So you see how as I turn the other one up, it goes like well, just basically it means that the way that it's mapped is most of the knob is concentrated in this beginning half, and you have to get all the way to the end to actually start to introduce that panning stuff. And if I turn off some of these effects, you'll probably see it a little clearer. And it might even be cool to like make it, what is the amount being 100 the most? Yeah, okay. Try Gaussian and changing the amount so to where it gets smaller. Or actually higher, I guess, is what it would need to be. Now try that with the effects back on. I'm gonna be honest, I think that it's nice and cool with the clean version too. So I'm gonna kind of use this as my starting point. So this is 30. And this is 60, I think here. Yeah, 30 and 60, and we'll call this guitar cab. And then we'll change the crunch knob, remove that. We'll call this crunch instead. Put it on the same exact knob and just draw a little arrow. This is a trick that I like to use when I'm making presets to where it's like we have a guitar cab and a crunch knob. So if our guitar cab is on, sorry, let me say that without playing something. If our guitar cab is on, we can turn the crunch up. But then if we're like using, if this knob's off and we start turning the crunch, we're going to be like, this does nothing. Oh, I guess that means it is depending on this one. So hopefully that makes good sense to people. I think it does. I think an arrow pointing at the thing makes people be like, maybe I need that. That's called good UI design, I think. All right. And then I think the other thing too is I love having the grain drift. Yeah, I don't know really what is better here. To get rid of this. I think I like having them both as one knob better for some reason. Okay, now the only problem is at the medium point, I don't want it to be quite that sorted by the source. Macro 2, right? Yeah, macro 2. And I'm just going to change the window amount to a similar. And I think for this, you can actually, I'll be able to go in here and just change the maximum. Oops, where is that? Change the maximum amount that it goes up to. Okay, I'm done just kind of messing with. I feel like I had it in a sweet spot and then I fucked it up. Maybe if I just press back a couple times. Yeah, that's it. We're just going to call that good. I'm going to go down and change the close, and I'll just edit that little section out. Okay, so we're getting a little too delicate with this sound. I kind of want to move quicker through these, so um, I think the first thing I'm going to add to kind of move this along is a multi-band compressor. Turn the below up a little bit, which just adds upward compression. Add some gain compensation. I can kind of get out of this menu right here. Where's the gain compensation? Here it is. Turn my, so I've just been producing on super quiet. Hopefully it hasn't been so quiet you can't hear it. Okay, we'll call that decent for right now. I'm gonna add my spectral layer back. Kind of turn this down for a second. I think it's just scanning too fast. Yeah. Then I'm going to send this over, instead of to the main, I'm going to send it to bus 2. Kind of mix it with this. There we go, that's a little crustier. I should honestly just be using a fucking noise oscillator to add dust to it instead of that trick. But it's worth teaching, so I'll just leave it on for this one. Okay, I'd like to get this less loopy sounding. Maybe it's just too much high end. Add a low pass filter. And then we'll just do a ginormous convolver. So it's just classic, you know. with something so bright like that, it's also having, because it's a convolver, that weird like ending part. Let's just add a kind of pumping reverb thing to this. So if we go really slow with the speed, 4-bar length, it should add like a little reverb thing with a tail. Too quick on the pullback there. Got 2 bars just to be a little quicker. Maybe it's just the fact that it's vocoded. I mean, it might be just sample selection. Yeah. I think Spectral might not be the move right here. Let's just get a pad sound. Why not? It's kind of a weird one. A sharp. So this is A sharp minor, which I don't think is actually a key. I think they call that B flat minor instead of A sharp because of the way that musical notation works. But you cannot type a flat. You could do A B, I guess, but I prefer to just make everything sharps. Yeah, so A sharp, the way to change a minor to a major is to go up 3 semitones. So we got A sharp right here. 1, 2, 3, which means we're right here for a major. So A sharp minor and C sharp major are parallel keys, which means they use the same notes but just have different parts of different spots of resolution. But it also means that you can kind of like go in between them. So that means if we pitch it down 1 semitone, we should be in the same key. And I'm just gonna turn off tape emulation for a second. I might even move tape emulation into the other thing so that it affects all sounds and not just the piano. And then we can turn this off. Where's that distortion coming from? I guess from the sound. We're going to change the name of this from piano position to... Actually, we'll just add a secondary one that is spectral. Actually, so that they're side by side, that's another UI thing that's useful. That's another user interface thing that's useful. Tape emulation, we want to be macro 6. So I'm going to go in here. Everything that's 5 is going to become 6, macro 6, macro 6, and then this will be tape emulation. And then we'll call macro 5 spectral position. What does this sound like? We'll just call it spectral POS. Spectral position. Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, and I kind of like that. Does it work with our first one? Okay, let's just bring the volume way up on that. And we can do that with this. And I think I might even like this with like a reversed like pump thing. So you put something like this on there. I give it a little bit of like a smoothness to the end of it. And then you just go like fast rate. And it gets a little overpowered. Now, sadly, we're kind of getting to the point where we have two pad sounds in one patch. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a knob. And this is another useful thing that is just worth knowing. Which is you can have a toggle that's like A, B, or both. So we're going to do that right here. So we'll go 75% on that, 100% on this one. And then the way that we write this, so os A slash os B mix is, so when it's all the way to the left, we want that to be 100%. So we're going to go down here to it. It should be macro 4. Where is it at? So when the knob that is going to A, so I just need to make sure that's level A, yeah. When this is set to 0, it should go to 100. When it's set to here, we'll say that it should stay at 100, and then like as it goes to here, basically we have like a crossover point that we can kind of decide how we want these to be mixed in a second. But all the way to the left is just A is on, and all the way to the right is A is totally off. Then as we go in here, we can set this to when A is on all the way, we want it to be, when this one's, we want it to mirror this one, is what I'm not saying, but actually saying. So that means that now it'll be B when it's all the way to the right, and it'll be A when it's all the way to the left. Now in this middle thing, we kind of have a mix where as we kind of run through here, it might just sound good as it is. So. Okay, so I'd say that sounds decent as it is. Now this does commit one of the sins of sound design, doing Serum 2 presets that I do have, which is I don't like it when you have macros that won't work all the time. So that means that like when we're turned to the right, and if it's a preset that I'm making to like sell, it's different than if it's one for just personal use. But if I have a thing that piano position does nothing when this is turned to the right, that frustrates me because then you end up like twisting knobs and being like, why doesn't this knob do anything? It's just because it not every design can be perfect, especially if it uses different sound sources. So the more creative you get with it, the kind of harder it is to work with. Let's add one final little thing to this. First of all, I like to have a slow, when I'm doing this little type of sound, have one that just slowly changes. And it can just add like a nice. And just maybe a little more subtle so it's not always going completely off and on. You know what we could do even? A low EQ 12, or I'm sorry, a high EQ 6 or 12. We turn on like that. I don't know why this is not just a high pass filter, you know what I'm saying? Or like a high shelf. Okay. What else can we do? I think just to finish this off, just a knob on here. Just kind of go in and refine the shape of that so it's not so far down. Okay, and I think I'm happy with that, so. Now to the last part, which is just naming this. Make sure I save that sample in there. Make sure anything that I use that is a sound source is. Oh, you know what else I could do too? Well, no, I'm not gonna mess with it. Is there a way to copy effects? Yeah, so control. Okay, perfect. So if you hold Shift and Alt, it'll copy an effect. I'm just gonna add this separately to. I guess there's no purpose to that. Yeah, there's no purpose to that. Right? If I'm gonna copy it to there, I might as well just move both of these. Whoops, move both of these into here. Put them in the correct order. I'm not gonna lie though, I don't like the way that sounds, so let's just go right back with that. All right, yeah, let's just save this. We'll call this the Piano Rambler or something like that. Piano Rambles, and this one is again major. All right. And let me just kind of copy the format that I have here. Pad single key. Ramble. All right, so that took way longer than it should have to make one preset. Oh, and I forgot to save. I forgot to save with the what the fuck is this? Oh, pump shape. All right, I'm getting lost in the sauce here. The last thing that might be useful is just make this mono. Now, y'all can do that on your own. If you like the sound of that mono, you can do it on your own time. So I'm moving on from this one. It's time to make a new sound. Piano Ramble. Save it with the correct settings. So. Okay. I'm having some ideas as soon as I go to save it every time. That's why I'm struggling to do this. Let's just go ahead and make a new preset. We're gonna start this one with a pad. And we'll do a spectral. Wait, what happens at the end of this? Okay, well I don't want that. Actually, if I just turn it off. Oh no, actually I think I like 62 Mafia even better. We're gonna pitch it down 5 semitones. Go straight into vocoding from B and do a plucky thing. Okay, now we're gonna use a granular one, so this should probably be a little randomer sounding. Okay. This one might even get into more of a texture than a... Yeah, so the problem with anything that with a gap in it is sometimes you'll miss a note. Yeah, fuck it. Let's just do weird stuff. That one's really loud. E should be down 4, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, yep. And then I'm going to do the same thing that I started to do last time and then skipped out on, which is this shape. Because this will make it just be a little quicker. BPM sync, BPM sync. Turn the scan off. Half note. This is really not a pad sound, so I'm gonna have to change it just because I am trying to show pad sounds. I'm sure people are like, "Oh, that's cooler than a pad." I'll do a different tutorial out of it, something like that. Okay, we'll do that. That sounds cool. So C sharp down 1. And then we're gonna make it travel. So do you hear how we're getting a quarter note thing there? And if we turn the density up, I just might want to change the sample. You know what I'm actually going to change to is instead of a granular, just a melodic loop. So I have to go up 1 semitone. No, I need something with more sustain. Maybe that'll be it. I think that'll be fun. Is G 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8? Yeah, down 8. It should be correct. Okay, and then I'm gonna add a just a classic like pump to this. Double pump actually. So I'll go, not panning, on the volume. A good way to do a double pump is have 2 of these at different rates. So one's at a half, one's at a quarter note. This one's going to modulate the volume. This one is going to modulate like the amount. And then we'll have it just be this shape right here, right? So then I take this mod source. Oops, I just have to open this up. Auxiliary source LFO2. Why is it quarter note, half note? what's going on here? Oh, it's because this goes all the way to 0. So I need this to just be higher. There we go. Now we're gonna go to Spectral, vocode B. Or better yet, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna remove this modulator from here. We'll send A into there. Have that macro like this, and then this one will be like a low and high position. So this will be a slower pump on the second one. So it'll just kind of bring this in and out. I even go a bar length. I really feel like the vocoding just makes it sound terrible. Let's try this instead. So A minor, 1, 2, 3 should just be, as you know, A minor and C major are complementary. They use this. They use all the white notes. So hopefully this will be right. And then try vocoding that. Maybe that's just, it needs a little more texture to do the vocode better. I kind of like the sound of that. We'll send this into. I mean, I think we're just gonna end up doing the same thing that we did with the other one, where this is too. Because we don't ever want to have a thing where it's like our sound that we have together is worse than one of the sounds by itself that just loses clarity. We're going to go start point on this one. I don't want to be showing the same kind of presets over and over again. Okay, so I can tell that modulating these two will probably be useful. So we're going to do a rhythm one for this first. I don't know if it's going to need to go both directions or just one, but we'll kind of try randomizing it. If we scan backwards. Change the direction to backwards and scan backwards. I'm gonna have this be the scan rate, and it will always be starting from 0 and going backwards. I'm not gonna lie, it gets rid of the poppiness of it. I'm gonna cancel that. So that's gonna be scan rate. Get rid of these. Remove all destinations. Okay, so what I think I need to do is density should go down, and I'm just kind of feeling this out while length goes up. Yeah, we'll call that good. So this is the rate. And I'm going to send that into bus, the second bus. That'll give me like an independent effects thing. And we might even send this into the second bus as well. And make this like a mega delay. So that goes there, this goes here. And just give it the most like big washed out. Guess I have to turn this on to looping, I guess. Forward loop, send it all the way. And then I'm gonna kind of have this be like a thing that every 4 bars kind of fades in and fades back out. Maybe we will even reverse this. So what that's doing, if I turn this on to none and none, this is this soloed now, this second bus, and that's the way you solo these buses is like that, especially if you have more stuff going into main. Feels like a little starting piece for it versus you know what we could even do is have 2 of these. You use Alt to duplicate it, and then we'll do a flip. No, you know what? I don't need to do all that. I was gonna say have one that starts it with like opening a piece and then fades it in at the end. I will say I'm gonna change this to a low 18 and add a spinner pretty quick on a sine wave. And then we'll just make this faster. All right. Another thing that's always nice, and this is just a thing that I've never found to not be good, is a transgate on a. So I have one that I have saved here that's just trans classic. If you put it to a half rate, this is kind of like the classic trans pattern. Put it on the volume of stuff if you want it to be like perfectly on and off, but if you want it to be a thing where you can turn it on and off. So like normally I would do a transgate like this, because then it's gating the volume. Only problem is then you can't turn the mix knob on and off for this. You can. There's a way to do it like routing it a little differently, but another thing you do is just put it on the cutoff, and then. Oops, why is that not working? What is this routed to do? Oh, it's routed to this, but it just doesn't work. call this trance. Kind of speed it up even. And then even like add a reverb after that kind of goes with the trance gate. Or at least just, you know, is on while the trance gate's on. Do a vintage reverb. And this one we're going to do a similar thing that we did in the other one where it's just going to be this though. This is... Oh, you know what we'll do instead, just to make this nice and simple, is because this layer... I think I'm going to send this into none. Huh. Yeah, I just want to do an independent knob. So I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the last one, where this is a... It's going to be a little more complex because this one uses a volume gate, like right here. So I have the auxiliary source macro for a os A slash os B mix. Same thing. I'm gonna go ahead and save these so I don't forget to do that. Go in here. Macro 4, so I'll just sort by source. Am I tripping? Oh, it's only on one of them. It says macro 5. Oh, it's because it's a auxiliary source. Okay, so I'll just have to keep that in mind. And I'll have to use this curve on this. So that's going to be A. So I want this to be on here, here. I've not tried this before, so I'm just kind of troubleshooting this as I go. 75. Yeah, that seems like it works. The only difference that is I'm gonna have to go to macro 4 here, sort by source, go down to macro 4, and give it the opposite shape. Wait, right? That's the opposite shape, I'm pretty sure. Yes. Okay, now if you want to have control over this, this will be our backfill. Backfill verb. Okay, so that controls that. We could also do like a I think we'll call, oh man, okay, so I want this to be on and offable, right? How can I do that? So I guess just the way that I just showed, right? Then the last thing that I'm going to do is just make sure that when this is a really low thing, high 18, high 24, and just cut it at like 50 hertz. So that when this is on, as you can see, it's not letting any volume versus off. It kind of lets, I think, a little bit through in the beginning. Okay, so we'll call this jelly delay right here. And then what I'm going to have to do is this will have a thing on it like this, right? Jelly delay. And then this will be like a backfill knob for that. And I'll call that swelly jelly. Right? Swelly jelly. Keeping on moving on. I think I routed one of them into one. I'm going to cancel that out. This is going to go into main, right? Why did I have this routed to none? Okay. This needs to be routed to 1. Actually, I can do this without that. I'm just going to, so this is in, it goes to main in 2. I'm going to set it to filter 2. And then just set this to have a pluck shape on it, right? That seems like it'd be natural. I hate that. All right, that's okay. That's, we know we don't like that. So that's going back to main. And then I think I will switch it to here. Give it like a reverby thing or a delay thing. Just something to give it some interesting effects. If with its plucky, with it being plucky like that, reverbs will probably be nice. I'm sorry, delays will probably be nice. Okay, we'll call that the infinity verb or something. Just trying to get some different tones out of this to where you can turn this up and be like, all right, well, that's cool. Because, again, trying to go a little quicker than I normally would. Okay. I'm going to move trance. Whoa. I'm going to move the trance thing. Or I'm going to move the infinity thing to macro 8 because I have one that I'm going to do with the trance called Trance Blaster. So macro, what is that? 6. Changing that to 8. Changing that to 8. Changing this to 8. Verb. Gonna change the note and see if that sounds nice. Yeah, that sounds nice. Okay. Okay. Trance Blaster is just gonna be like heavy distortion. And compression. I might just call this Blaster instead. And just put it on this. Okay, it's a very weird one, but it'll work. All right, I'm calling it there. All right, so then I'm going to kind of move into going a little quicker. I'm not going to fill out all the macros for these, but I'll kind of just add one of each type of macro that I found useful and kind of focus more in on specifically how you might set up your spectral and wavetable or your spectral and granular oscillator. So let's do one that's just going to be two different spectral wavetables. I don't know if I've done a double spectral one yet, but we will go not spectral, just a regular melody here. Trying to get one with like maybe like a guitar. Do I have any guitars in here? No, I think I already did that one. Okay, that one sounds nice and textured. And this will also be the first minor one. So whenever you're doing one that you want to be in a minor key, you're just gonna, instead of basically in here, I'm gonna say minor. And so you'll know that if you're pressing this one, because it's a sample in minor, right? We're gonna pull it up one semitone. That's gonna put it into C minor. So when I play C, C minor plays. When I play B, B minor plays. All right, let's go to play B minor. All right, so I'm pressing the key of B on the keyboard right here, and it's playing the original sample. So then we know it'll be in B minor or whatever key we're playing is minor. Now let's go in here. And I always find that one of the best things to do is just gate it. And then we will change the speed. We're going to set it to loop, forward, reverse loop. Which means it just goes back and forth. I'll even change the range to higher. And pitch this down an octave. And then add a peak. Pitch it down and add the peak thing. I think it might be cooler without the little. Let's just kind of keep moving with it. So we're going to treat this as kind of a fuck it, we'll send it into filter 1, remove it from main, and this will be like our base layer. We're just, no, we don't need filter 1. We're just going to send it directly to nothing. And this will be like our just reverb pad type sound layer. But instead of doing a pad, and I don't like when it reverses. So let's either go full reverse by changing the direction. And then forward, see, this is one of the things that I've explained this in a tutorial on this before, but forward loop, if you're going reversed, means continue to go reversed. Whereas reverse loop would mean go one time and then go back. Right? So, it just means continue the directionality that you started. Let's try this. We'll do like a little one shot at the beginning. 4 bars. We'll go 2. I can turn this rate off because I don't want it to always repeat the same section. Yeah, and then that can give us the ability to scan both directions. Scan. Speed. I'm going to set it to, say, 65. I'm going to do the classic reverb and delay just to give this a bass here. If you're ever doing a reverb and then a delay, it's going to multiply the reverb, so you don't want to go big. So we're going to have one that's add harmonics, and we're going to have one that's remove harmonics. Or gate harmonics, better. Okay. So we're in a minor key. I want to try something I actually haven't ever tried with this, and that is going to be using the arpeggiator. So we'll probably have just one more for this. I don't know what makes me want to try and do this live for the first time, but is there a way to link just one of my... Yeah, this is, I'll explore that at another time. What I am going to do, because I'm sure there's a great way to do arpeggiated versions of this, and I'll need to come back to that. Yeah, there's definitely a great way to do it, because I can just use like repeating notes really quick. But what I was going to try and do is go in here, and maybe if I'm lucky, they'll have like a pre-saved... They don't. Like a tuned, I was thinking like a tuned LFO where I can kind of like modulate between different tones in a single lead, but I guess I'm just not gonna be able to do that. Let's try this. Why not? We'll go real slow. Okay, the problem is it starts in the same spot every time. Huh. I really wish I hadn't opened this ARP thing because I want to play with it and I don't know exactly how to do it. So it's just gonna bloat the video. So we'll come back to that. We'll do another video with that. Glue all those together. So maybe for this one, we'll have two little base layers. So what I'm doing routing wise, I'm going to send a spectral thing into none and then into A and B, and we'll get like the reverb swoosh that I've done a time or two. All right. What else can we do to this to kind of get it? I don't like how wet this is. Okay, so I'm gonna make this be like a square that turns on and off. All right, let's add another layer. We'll go spectral again. Okay, so I can show you how to turn a major into a minor. You're going to pitch it down 1, 2, 3 semitones. That gets us to D minor, down 2. Should be in the same key now. You know what? Let's try this. Let's have this be the thing that goes into 2. Maybe that'll completely fix this. Yeah, I kind of like that. I mean, it's not perfection, but I'll put it to 0. We can even change this to the exact same things as that. Gate and spectral peak. That's another good tip is if you're like doing macros, whoops, remove, init the module. Okay. To have all of your same macros do the same things on different things. That way when you turn one, you're getting adjustments to all your stuff. This time maybe we'll add low harmonics. I don't think I like it lower. Oh, you know what would be really nice is if we get little delays off that. Bum, 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 bada, bada. So we're gonna have to just speed it up towards the end. So I think it's gonna be a. This will go into the rate of this mod source LFO 3 or is it 4? 4. And put a delay at the end of it really fast. Go 16, 18. Let's see what it's like with a little bit less reverb. And then we're going to put a compressor on it and okay. Just to keep moving, I'm just gonna end that one here. We'll save this as a temporary one. So pad finish me. All right. And we'll start a new one. And this one I just want to go real really maybe simple. I'll just yeah, I guess I'll save the simplest for the last, which is like a thing that I've done in enough videos that if you have already come across my tutorials, this is kind of like the bass pad. This isn't going to be another minor one, and I'm not going to spend hardly any time at all on this one, because it's just the classic thing that I've always done, which is offset all the way up. Maybe a little less. Right, and then you just throw a bunch of reverb on that. So we'll maybe we'll send this into all three buses and just do a one sound one again. Using the same thing but a spectral. And so it's in C, it's in minor, so we can just do that. Well, that's cool sounding already. Smear it. What is that? Big reverb. I know I've shown this 1,000 times, but a big reverb is nice for pads. What do you want from me? I'm not inventing pads here. It's just... I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this. Actually, I'll use a EQ. Actually, kind of do a little two-stepper like I've kind of showed before. So bar length on that, and then we're just gonna increase it a little more through this. Okay, well it's a very strange one. That's cool. I kind of like. And I just gotta add some like delays to this, make it nice and sprinkly. And you know what I'll do? I'll do a low, mid, high here. The lows will have a delay. Mids will have a delay. Highs will have a delay. Mix it all together with a chorus after. Ha! All right. Just gonna have that kind of randomized. Then I'm gonna just add some movement to our frequencies here. Oh, you know what? We'll make it a random movement. Why not? Did you get a Rossler going? Move them on around, baby. Why not? You know, who said you can't? And then for that one, we'll get the Y going on here. And turn that down. All right, and yeah, that was another quick one at the end, but I'm gonna add this in. I don't think I like having the same thing twice. Yeah, let's try that. So, okay, so to end this one out, this will be like the only rhythmic preset that I've done so far, but this is just another good way to have stuff. So let's say we want to have one that has a possibility to be a pump, or actually, because this is a new technique and I think people will appreciate this, we're going to do a rhythm. HY, oops. How much time do I have? Ooh, I'm running out of time. Okay, I'll go quick with this. RHYTHM select SELA. Oops. Rhythm select. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go in here and we are going to have a couple different little rhythm things that we have. So I'll add 4 filters. Filter. Right? And so what we're going to do is all of these are by default going to be off. And I want it to be when I have it set all the way to the left. And let's go ahead and add a multiband compressor. So when I have this set all the way to the left, this one should be on. So if we go into our matrix here, sort by source, macro 1. Oops. All right, well, I guess that's going to be all down there, but that's okay. When macro 1 is turned to on, no, I'm sorry, when macro 1 is turned all the way to the left, we need a grid of 4. This should be on, this should be removed, this should be off. All right. Now when we have macro 1, and we could even do mixing between these, but just for speed's sake, we're going to just go 2, 3, 4, and oops, the matrix, macro 2, and I believe I've already saved these. Remap user switch 2. Yep. So that's 2. Switch 3. Same thing, but at the third position. Switch 4. Right? Now, when I go through here, as you'll see, my 4 different filters will turn on depending on where I have them set to here, which means I can quickly go in and easily switch between like a plucking one on the second. Maybe we even want it to be like a double. Or a dotted. Okay, cool. We'll call that number 2. Number 3. And we're just gonna have be like a oops, a bouncing band notch filter. And then we'll even hit it with like a really slow upwards movement. That sounds cool. All right, and the last one, though you already definitely know how to end this by adding your own thing. Classic, transgate. Why am I going back to a classic thing and reusing these techniques? I'll tell you why. It's not just for speed's sake. It's because like as you start saying like, oh, this is a thing that I like to use when I make presets, you'll notice that you have an overlap in like, hey, my presets have this feature a lot of the times. What do people also call that? It's developing an aesthetic and a style. It's why when you listen to people's music, you can tell that they made that music because they're using similar techniques. And yeah, so don't be afraid to reuse your stuff. That's one of the worst ways to hold yourself back as a producer, is always making shit a new way every time. Okay, and we'll call this one a work in progress too, with the only caveat being I definitely know I want to have a mix knob for all 4 of these, meaning I want to be able to turn them off. How would I do that? Is it important? Yeah, it would be easy to do that. All I need to do is link them all to this right here. So I'm going to go in here, sort by source again, and macro 5 will be this control for all of them. Macro 5, macro 5. And we'll put the arrow. All right, now I hope that was useful for y'all. I know this is gonna be a longer video, but I just do think that that will end up being something that's worth watching because you get to see me make presets from scratch. Probably, or actually definitely, because I'm going to put this out soon. The preset pack is not finished. I will put a better video out as soon as I finish it, where I kind of take this longer stream version of it and say like, here's my most concise points, being like, do these couple kinds of macros, do these couple kinds of things, and also how to use the pack, and a demo of it will be the next thing that I put out. So yeah, thank you for watching. Really, you know, I feel like I've been negative the whole video, so let's finish on a positive note. I will say, if you're on my Patreon and you are waiting for the next thing to come out, go check the Patreon. It's shut down, and the only way that I can stop you from paying me, because Patreon is a greedy corporation, I would say, is I have to ban you from being able to sign up for my Patreon. Anybody that's still paying me on Patreon, go fucking unsign up. I'm sorry, I'm just not going to be doing Patreon, and I don't want to ban you in case I ever get the opportunity to start it back up again. Patreon basically is making it to where if I deleted the tiers and it doesn't matter. They're just like, all right, well, the last amount that they paid you is what they're going to pay you. You can get rid of Patreon people by deactivating your Patreon, which I'm not going to do. Or you can ban people, which I did have to ban one guy because he forgot, I think, and he was subscribed to the biggest tier. And I refunded him some of his money. But I don't even know if he noticed that because he never responded to messages telling him to cancel or whatever. But I don't know why I'm talking about that. Long story short, get off the Patreon if you're on it. You know, have fun making music. This is such a shitty ending to the video. I'm not going to edit this other than the small edits that I have to do stitching these together. Thank you for watching. Go buy stuff on Gumroad. Goodbye. And take care of yourself. You know, life's hard. Enjoy it. Make music. Have fun. Be loving to your friends and family. Goodbye.